have emotions and think about things. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Hi, welcome to Emotional and Mental Justice. I'm Yuna. Today is all about love, art, and culture. I will be talking to a remarkable Zambian artist by the name of Nukwase Tembo. Her work is a true testament to her talent. In her words, her art seeks to comfort the disturbed and to disturb the comfortable. Record on this computer. Yay, we're recording. Hi, Nukwase. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Yuna. Thank you for having me.
No worries. I'm so glad you're here. We finally got here. We've been trying to arrange this for so long, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Okay, so obviously I reached out to you because I didn't actually know you until maybe a month or two ago when you did this talk on mental health, and I did the talk the same week on a different day. And I saw you and I just sort of researched the girls on there and I thought, oh, this girl does some good work. And Muma told me about you as well. That's the person that was posting the other thing. And I was like, oh, looked at your art and I love your art. So Nukwase is a young Zambian artist who paints. Is it painting, drawing?
I'm a mixed media artist. I do painting, I do drawing, I do sculpture and collage as well.
Wow, yeah. I mean, I've seen your work. I'm not, I love art. My art is different to yours. My art is poetry. But I think this is something we have in common because art, I think, is just such a beautiful thing. And I think a woman who loves art is a woman who speaks from her soul. Not only does she speak from her soul, she listens to her soul. And often for me, I can speak for myself when I say I speak from my soul and listen to my soul, but also when I do art or my poetry, it's sometimes I have teachings in my poetry because I want people to hear something that's deep inside and learn something from it. And aside from that, it's sometimes just to release what's in here, whether somebody hears it or not, it's out in the universe. Can you relate to that?
100%. That's 100% me, yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, so if you want to know anything about Nukwase, follow her pages. It'll all be written down in the bio underneath the recording. So please look out for that. Nukwase, tell me a little bit about yourself, your art.
So I'm Nukwase Tembo, and I've been a practicing artist since 2014. That's professionally. But I've been an artist pretty much all my life. It's been a part of who I have been. I started drawing when I was about 2.
Wow.
So it's been something that I've done my entire life.
Okay, so when you sorry, go on.
No, you can continue with the question.
Okay. So when you started drawing when you were about 2, was it a difference in you when it comes to art, or was it just where kids are bought coloring pencils and you just do something and play, or did you always kind of feel the pencil was your thing?
I always my work was always expressive. I was always telling stories. I was always trying to express how I felt about different things, and I would always draw stuff that I found interesting, stuff that I wanted to achieve maybe later in life. So my work was as I was growing up, my work was pretty very expressive. I would tell stories. I would always it was this thing that always pushed me to keep creating. It was a second nature.
So that was your purpose, and you found it and you're living it now. Yeah, when I started writing poetry, it was in the early 2000s. So I didn't always, mine wasn't quite from the age. Early 2000s, I just used to write because I was going through some things, whether it's emotional or whatever, and I would write stuff down. And some years later, I came across all my writings because I just kept them in this book, and this book is all ripped at the sides and everything. And I sat there and read my stuff, and that's when I realized that I want to get my stuff out there because I touched myself with my writings, and I was like, I was going through this and I was going through that, but it's actually so poetic. you know, not to blow my own trumpet, but for me, I love poetry. I love what I've written. So do you feel the same way about your own stuff?
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. I guess you have to believe in yourself before you can sell it to anyone else, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because
Yeah,
I mean, how are people going to believe in what you do if you don't believe in it yourself?
yeah, yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
That's so true. But no, I think you're truly inspirational. There's one particular picture, I should have had it with me, but I think I commented on it on your Instagram, and it was a lady laying down with a glass of wine. Oh, I can't say.
Yes, yes. I think that's the first time we interacted,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, it was actually, because I saw that and there was something about it that I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And I think I messaged you saying, is this your story or is this a story? But it just gripped me. I love that picture.
Well, the thing is, I also do poetry.
Oh, do you? Okay.
So yes, so the story I had attached to the painting as a caption was actually a poem. So
Okay.
I had done that poem about 10 years ago,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and so yeah, I decided to create an artwork depicting,
Yeah.
like
So I guess
painting a
that's where
picture.
poetry connected us, because I read the
Yes.
piece, and it was when I read the piece, it was so deep that I just instantly, I was like, I need to message this girl. So you actually, the picture, it wasn't written at the same time as the poem, no?
No. So the poem, actually, before I started to do like in my adult years, when I started to do artwork that is contextual,
Uh-huh.
I only began doing that in 2014. So before then, I just used to do portraits.
Hmm.
So during the time when I was doing portraits, I was writing a whole lot of poetry. So I couldn't really paint the picture of what I was feeling or what I was going through or whatever story I wanted to tell. So I'd always write it down. So then when I got, like, I sort of like crossed the bridge between writing the poetry and actually painting a picture of it. And so I sort of like stopped doing the poetry and I've just been doing the paintings. So anyway, of late, I've been referring back to my old poems and creating artwork off of those.
Oh wow, maybe one day we can do a poet in conjunction with each other. Yeah. So I have questions for you today.
Okay.
And also, actually, when I edit this recording, I'm going to put the picture that we've just discussed so people can see what I'm talking about, if that's okay. So what does art mean to you? I know that in your bio you talk about how your work explores and challenges toxic societal norms and that infringe upon the rights and values of women of color. And you also talk about how your work focuses on normalizing Blackness. So the question is, what does art mean to you?
Well, for me, art is it's not just expression. It's also a way of life.
Mm.
That's simply what art means to me.
Okay.
Simply put, yeah.
Can you see your life
Expressing
without art?
Pardon?
Can you see your life without art?
No. I do not see my life without art. I do not see sanity without art.
Okay.
It actually helps keep me sane.
And that's where we go back to what I said earlier about speaking from your soul.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So today's topic is, I should have said at the beginning, is based on love, art, and culture. So
Love, art, and culture.
love, art, and culture.
Ah, okay.
Okay. So how does art relate to culture?
Well, art, it not only depicts culture, but it also it's used as a drive, like a vehicle to drive culture.
Okay.
So the two, like you can't have art without culture, and you cannot have culture without art. Like that interconnected.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that
Yeah.
only, would you say it's only based on, for example, a culture that you have lived, or or is it just life, or can you pick out segments of art from different people's cultures, or how does it relate?
I think it's all across the board. It's not just certain cultures, but cultures all around the world, different kinds of cultures. And it's not just visual art, but just art in general.
Okay.
Creativity is a part of human culture. Yeah.
Okay. So it's more human culture than a culture you've experienced yourself. So you can relate to a different culture and art can come into it.
Yes, and art can actually is the one thing that can help you understand a culture that you have never experienced.
Okay.
It's sort of like it breaks it down to the bare minimum for anyone out there. Like if they look at the work, they'll be able to relate to it at a human level.
Yeah.
And very it's sort of like it's very simple. It breaks down the most complex of issues and helps the viewer to understand them
Yeah.
very easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you say that, it reminds me of music as well, where you can hear music in a different language and not know what they're saying,
Yes,
but the beat.
exactly. And you can just connect to it.
Yeah.
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 Okay. That's good. So my next question,
Uh-huh.
how does art and culture impact your relationships?
Um, for like I said, because they're interchangeable, and so culture is simply customs and beliefs and sort of like ideas and like a way of life of a certain kind of people.
Okay.
So culture is obviously it's passed on from generation to generation, but then art is that one thing that sort of like it makes culture more influential. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
No,
So, and because we human beings are creatures of copying certain habits, certain patterns that we see, and so it's easy to sort of like it's actually easy to change a culture using art.
Okay.
So art is it's you can use art to transform cultures. Art has been used to transform cultures. It is being used to transform cultures in its entirety. So yeah,
That's very
this
interesting. I mean, I've never heard that before, and that's interesting for me to hear. So how can you give me an example of how art has been used to change cultures or to understand?
well, art has been used to bring awareness to certain issues, and like I said, it's a medium. It's a way of communicating complex issues in the simplest of forms, in a way that people can understand, and that's how it's been used. Yeah.
Okay, that's very well
So over the pardon.
I'm saying that's very well explained. I'm with you. I understand what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, so I have the next question. Okay, so I guess you've kind of answered the next question because you talked about how art and culture are interlinked. But do you think, in the same way that I said, can you see yourself living without art? Do you think that art would mean the same thing without culture? Did you get my question?
Please repeat. Are you able to repeat the question?
Yes, it's saying internet connection unstable. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. I'm saying, do you think that without culture, that art would mean the same thing?
I don't, well, I don't even think humanity is able to exist without culture. As long as it's a set of ideals and customs that are being practiced by a group of people and being passed down from generation to generation. As long as humanity strives, as long as humanity is here, we will always have culture. It may not be the same culture that we've had in the past, but it is culture regardless. Yeah.
And that takes the question anyway from when you said that art and culture is
not having, yeah. Pardon?
I said that answers the question anyway from earlier when you said art and culture is interlinked and you don't think there's really one without the other. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So then my next question to you is, what is normalizing blackness, as you said in, you know, in what you wrote and I read out earlier? What does normalizing blackness mean?
Okay. Normalizing blackness. For me, normalizing blackness is normalizing the fact that Black people are equal human beings, and we are diverse. We are so many things. We are not just one thing. We are so many things. It's about normalizing the many aspects that make us equal human beings to everyone else. It's about normalizing things that we have seen, like sort of like normalizing how we perceive ourselves, firstly, because I think that there's a lot of things that we don't do because we feel we are not good enough to do these things, or we're not intelligent enough, or not beautiful enough, or not exposed enough. We are not advanced enough to do these things. But there's actually no difference between us and other people. And so we must normalize seeing ourselves the way we see other people. And only when we change how we perceive ourselves will the world change how they perceive us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I say that, I clap for you because that is exactly my sentiment. And I feel like it's gone back centuries and centuries and decades, whatever, of us being suppressed and us being told we are not good enough, from back to being colonized when we were being, and we've put other cultures up on a pedestal. And things like the hair, the weaves, the extensions that we do and stuff like that, we're told African hair is hard to manage, it's difficult, it's kinky, it's dry, work with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, all of those.
And so, sorry to cut you. And so in my work, I make it a deliberate policy. All my subject matter depicts natural hair. So like I always pick different hairstyles. Like that's also, like, it's a very deliberate thing. I want to showcase the diversity of our hair. I want to take away that narrative that people have that our hair is unprofessional, it's hard to maintain, it's ugly, it's unattractive. So it's in those thank you. And it's in those little things that I feel, you know, representation matters.
Yeah.
You know, people are going to look at that work and they'll be like, oh, let me try and do my hair like that. And this is how we slowly start to see ourselves in a different light.
Yeah.
And also I make it a point also to like even if I'm talking about a sad story, or I still depict the images in a positive light, because there's been a lot of depicting African bodies in very negative light. So I have moved away from that, and I'm showing this part of Blackness, like this aspect of Blackness that is not being shown much in the art world. Yeah.
That's good, and we need more people to present us in such a way. And I feel like for me, there was a time in my life when I didn't love my hair, and I felt like if I was to wear extensions, it was better because it was straighter, it was longer, it was this and it was that. But now sometimes I wear extensions, sometimes I have my own hair. In the past, when I would have my own hair, it would be that, oh my God, I don't look so good. But now I put extensions because I want extensions, because I want a different look.
Exactly.
Because I need to look better. And when I do have my own hair, I still feel beautiful because I can put it in any style I want to put it in. And I still say, you know what? I'll rock the afro hair this time, and I'll rock the curly or the straight another time. So not necessarily, I think people should love their hair, but not also feel like because I'm saying black hair is the best, I now can't put extensions on. Be able to love.
And no, that is really wrong. I remember there was this one time I had there's been this narrative that's been pushed, like, why black women why do you wear wigs, why do you do your weaves, you don't love your hair and stuff like that. So anyway, I was simply explaining to them that the history of black women wearing wigs and weaves is because we needed to assimilate. So it's not something that we just started to do. It was a thing that we needed to do in order for us to fit into a world that wasn't accommodating to us.
Absolutely.
And how we look.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so now the wig industry, it's $1 billion industry, and we live in a capitalist society. So how stupid would it be for us to ban the use of wigs and weaves? We're taking away people's employment. We're taking away people's source of income. Instead of banning those things, why don't we change the market and encourage more of us to be a part of that, like to create those kinds of things for us, and we keep the money circulating amongst ourselves.
Exactly. And what I'd like to see more of, sorry, bear with me. Okay, what I would like to see more of is more Afro natural looking styles as well in wigs, because a lot of the wigs we see are either the long big curls or we see the straight. We don't see much of the Afro.
Yes, yeah. So I actually, like, every time I go to, there's this shop that I go, like, specifically to get my wigs from. I always tell them, because I usually get the natural hair looking wigs.
Yeah.
And so I'm always like, why do you people dislike us? Like, why can't you bring lots more of these kinds of wigs? Like, there's so many of us who like these kinds of hair that we can attach to our own natural hair for length and for thickness and all these things. So why don't you, like, bring more?
Yeah.
Don't limit it to straight and curls and waves.
This is like, what we're looking for now. What we're looking for.
Yeah.
So I have your next question. You talk about women of color not owning their own bodies. And I guess it may be a similar thing to, going back in history, at a time in history, and also just the culture. Perhaps this may be a Zambian culture where men may still be more dominant and women are, I don't know what your take on that is, but when you talk about women of color not owning their own bodies, firstly, do you feel that you own your own body?
Personally, yes. Not 100%. I would say 95%.
Okay, so what's that?
Pardon?
What is that 5%?
The 5% is still having people wanting to make decisions over my body, over what happens to my body.
Okay.
And you know, I'm a very stubborn person. I do not I'm not pushed over easily, but there's still that little 5% that's remaining. So I wouldn't say I 100% own my body, but at least I am one of the few who has taken control and said, you know what, this is me, this is my body, this you don't have any say over what happens to me.
So
mind you.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say stubborn. Stubborn, I think, is a good word when you look at it in a positive way. However, some might see stubborn as, especially perhaps in our cultures, African cultures, or Zambian, I should say, you're stubborn, and as a woman, why are you going against ABC? However, I think another word in place of stubborn could be strong-minded. So
exactly.
You are, in what you've described, very strong-minded. I want to say, when you say people deciding what to do with your body, like what kind of things are you talking about?
I'll start from an early age. First of all, girls are as young as 5, they're already being prepared for some invisible husband, you know.
Yeah,
they're already being told they shouldn't
might or might not come.
Exactly. They're being told they can't do this, they can't do that, because they won't be likable, they won't, you know, men won't like them, they won't be easy to marry and all these things. And then there's stuff like female genital mutilation. We have a form of it in Zambia. It's called labia elongation. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah, where you pull.
Yes, and so young girls are basically just taken and said, okay, you need to do this. No questions asked. Yeah, you're doing this. If you don't do this, your husband will leave you. I mean, there's no guarantee that you of anything, and you basically have no say on what's happening to your body. And this goes on into your adult years. People are now telling you, you know, you need to get married like now. You're getting old, your biological clock is ticking. So people actually get it's ticking. They get into these situations where they're not doing it because they want to, but they feel they need to, because if they don't, then they will not be seen as respectable human beings. And then after you get married now, there's, oh, when are you having a child? Oh, your biological
expectations. And then if you can't have a child, it's the whole, oh, she's not woman enough, you know, she can't bear a child. It could be exactly the man as well, but the man is never looked into in that sense. It's like the woman can't bear a child, and it becomes a whole family issue and all this stuff. And I feel like it's wrong. And I think whoever's listening, women, this elongation business gives you no guarantees for anything. Nothing.
It's useless. 100%.
Yes, damaging your bodies.
And then, like, I think last year, I met some lady who was telling me about her experience with her husband's family. Like, immediately they got married, like a few months in, when they noticed that she wasn't pregnant, they started bringing her potions and stuff, like, to get her pregnant. So I mean, like, she literally had no say on when she was ready to say, look, this is when I feel like, okay, I'm ready to be a mom now. There's these people who just come.
sorry, I was going to say,
There's
so this,
like
you now become the property. You now become the property of the husband's family.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And there's that pressure, and yeah. So when I say that we don't own our bodies, these are the things I'm talking about. It's about a grown woman having other people have a say over what's happening
Yeah.
to her body, what she should do, and come on,
Yeah.
it's
Do you find
ridiculous.
that I want to go back to the 5% of you that isn't able to necessarily bring that stubbornness into the full 100%. Why is that? Do you think it's based on the fact that you still have to hold on to some of culture's expectations? You still have to be, I guess,
A little bit,
respectful to
yeah,
your
a
parents?
little bit. Yes, a little bit. I mean, it's not something that you just unlearn overnight. It's a journey, it's a process. I'm definitely.
Sorry, carry on.
Pardon?
No, continue.
I'm definitely more in control of myself now than I was, say, 5 years ago. So it's been a process of
and I think
learning and unlearning. Yes,
you know, over time you become
exactly.
comfortable in your skin, you become more able to say yes and no and things like that. And I guess it's hard to, when you just say no, sometimes you become the troublemaker, and you have to be willing to be that troublemaker. If you're not willing to be hated or to be disliked in a certain way, because not everybody can like and accept you, and if you're not willing for that, you remain where you were 5 years ago. Yeah,
exactly. And so it's also like you've just mentioned, saying no. I feel like we African women, we are not supposed to say no.
Yeah.
Like when you meet an African woman who says no, it's sort of like a taboo. Like, who does she think she is?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's all part of people not having ownership over their bodies.
Yeah. So I'm going to go to the next question that I have for you. Obviously, you know, my channel is about.
One last thing. Yeah. Sorry, one last thing about ownership of our bodies. It's also about owning one's sexuality. Because for the longest time, we African women, to be specific, we are not seen as sexual beings, but we are seen as sexual objects. So we are supposed to please men sexually, but like sex is not for us.
It's for them.
We are just, yes, it's for them. So we are just vessels. Exactly. So it's about taking your sexual, it's about owning your sexuality and making decisions about it that are good for you and not for anyone else, or not because someone says you should do this, then you should do it. Do what makes you feel happy.
And why should a
what
woman
makes you feel good?
Yeah. And why should a woman not feel pleasure? Why should it not be enjoyed by the woman?
And why can't she be in control? Why can't she decide to say, okay, I want this, or I do not want this?
Yeah.
Or I do not subscribe to this and I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. Absolutely.
Okay.
So I was just going to say, based on my channel, which is based on emotional and mental health, mental well-being, as my page is called Emotional and Mental Justice. So I'm all for what you're saying. I aim to seek justice for our emotional well-being, for our mental health, and for things that are seen as, not being able to own our own, whatever it may be. So in terms of that, how do you think that art and culture are linked to emotional and mental health? For one, you might say that it makes you happy, but on a deeper level than that, how does it link to your emotional well-being or to whoever's?
Well, I think culture can be detrimental to one's mental health, to one's mental and emotional well-being, and art can be that one thing that sort of like heals them from the negative effects of the culture.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah, absolutely, I agree. And back to connecting, you gain things from poetry, from art, from whatever else. When you look at that, it can bring emotional healing, it can bring mental healing. I think.
Yeah, it actually does. It actually does. Just look at how, like you mentioned, you writing certain things and expressing yourself in a certain way was you sort of like healing in the way you were feeling at the time.
Yeah.
So it actually, if you, the person who wrote those things, can feel that kind of way, then your work has that sort of impact on other people as well.
And there are so many people in the world that are going through the same thing, and we don't realize because we don't always talk. And it's another thing for me with African culture. We talk amongst our friends behind closed doors within our closed circles. However, what we need to be doing is more to a wider, like me learning from you, you learning from me, us learning from other people who are doing similar things or have been through similar things. I might read something of yours and be like, oh my goodness, I went through that 5 years ago. Someone else must have felt this. And things, for me, when I've read things like that and looked at art, is when I've realized I'm not alone. You know, this emotion, this feeling has been felt by someone else, perhaps in a different way. So yeah. Okay, so what are the teachings within your art, aside from obviously the fact that you're teaching Blackness that we've discussed and everything else? Is there particular people you aim to teach? Have you got a niche, like I want young girls to learn this, or is it just?
Well, I want, the main purpose of my art is to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable.
Here we go.
And so
I like that. let me just stop you there. Let me just stop you right there. Wait, can you just say that again? It's to comfort. No, let me say it because I want it to come from my mouth. it's to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfort. No, and disturb those that are comfortable. Something like that.
Yeah, to disturb the comfortable.
Disturb the comfortable. So for me, the second part of that is so special because to be complacent. And actually, at my work, on my locker, I have something. Oh, what does it say exactly? Because I read it when I go to work. I read it before I open my locker because it's just something like that where the comfort zone is not actually comfortable. It's the suppression zone.
No.
It's suppressive.
Yes.
So that's what's in my locker at work. So were you saying that to disturb the comfortable is what you need? Don't remain in your comfort zone when actually you're not moving forward. And in life, we need to be moving. Anyway, sorry, I just like what you said. It resonated with me. So carry on, sorry.
So yes, that's the main purpose of my work. And so far, so good. It's doing what it needs to do. There's been so many people who've come to me, like literally crying and saying, you know what, your work touched my soul. Like it touched me, and I'm so moved by what you were saying in your work. And you know, I can't even begin to express how good it makes me feel, because it's talking about something that's been weighing down on my soul.
Yeah.
And then I've had people who are okay with the status quo of how things are currently, and they come up to me and they're like, your work makes me uncomfortable. I don't like your work because it makes me uncomfortable.
And that's where, for example, me as a therapist, somebody that would say that, I would be looking at touching deep into why it makes you uncomfortable. Where does it
exactly?
You know, is it your past? Is it something that's happened? A trauma you haven't dealt with? And
Well, what I've actually come to realize is that people find it uncomfortable because it's questioning the things that they have been like they have grown with, things that have been perceived to be normal, things that have been acceptable and accepted like widely throughout society. And so for someone to actually point this out and say, no, this is wrong, like, why are you doing this, why can't you do this, it people don't like to be challenged when they are in
I think that
in a position of comfort and
absolutely.
privilege.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes if somebody is uncomfortable, let's say somebody has been taught something forever and this is within them, this is what they believe is true, for them to be uncomfortable with it in the first place is because deep down they may have already been questioning that. And then
Exactly.
Yeah, because if somebody tells you something and you 100% disagree, because if somebody tells me,
Mhm.
God, for example, I'm a Christian, God is not God, I'll say, okay. And then if I was already questioning, I would say, oh, you don't
Yeah.
think so? Why? I mean, let's discuss this because I'm already questioning it.
Yes, but
Okay.
the discomfort also comes from a place of you've been questioning something, but you haven't brought yourself to like fully question it, because questioning it is attached to a form of shame. So like, you're not supposed to be questioning this.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like this. You feel like, so the discomfort actually comes with shame. Like, why is this person openly questioning these things that make me feel ashamed?
Yeah, and I think it's okay to feel shame, and I think people, the more people realize that it's okay to feel shame, the more inclined they'll be to actually face their shame and say, why is it shameful? Actually realizing this is not a shameful thing. This is just something that I felt shame because I've been told it's shameful. Okay, so where can we find your work, Nukwase? I will write this all in the bio, but where can we find your work?
You can find my work on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Okay.
I don't have a website yet, so the only place you can find my work is on these social media networks.
Okay.
And the name of my pages, like I use the same name on all platforms, is Keeping It Surreal Nukwase Tembo Art.
Keeping It Surreal Nukwase Tembo Art. Have you ever thought about,
Yes.
or have you ever actually had your work in a gallery, or have you chased doing that?
I've been exhibiting since 2014, group exhibitions, both here and outside the country. Yeah, and I had my first solo art exhibition last year in November. So I had it on my own terms. It was outside of the gallery system, so I found my own venue. I practically did everything myself, but it was a really good show.
Good. So at these shows, do you get people to buy your art or just to view your art?
No, I sell.
Sell.
Yeah. So
wonderful.
People do buy. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
So just my final question to you is that what hardships and obstacles have you faced? For one, being an African artist, two, being a female, and do you think your Blackness has come into the obstacles and hardships that you have faced? Also, I know it's a lot mouthful, but stereotypes. Has there been stereotypes?
Okay, so the one thing about being an African artist, especially, let me speak for Zambia, because different countries have different dynamics, like in Africa. We are not, like, visual art is something that's not even considered to be a profession, like to be a respectable profession. And so it's something that's not taken seriously, even when the time I decided that this is what I wanted to do, and I told my family, like, there was a lot of disappointment, a lot of telling me, no, why don't you reconsider? You're really smart. Why didn't you study law or something else? Like, why do you want to do this? How are you going to eat?
I need to ask something.
That is a terrible thing to do. Like, why would you waste your life? Like, what's wrong with you?
Wait, can I just ask first of all, are you eating?
Am I?
Are you eating?
Yes, I am.
Has your aunt ever fed you?
It's been feeding me. I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't.
And another thing, just to agree with what you're saying, and I think it is fair to speak of Zambians because that's the culture we're coming from. But I've also got a lot of African friends coming from Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Malawi, wherever. I've got a lot of African friends, and I think it's a general consensus in African backgrounds that we are expected to be a doctor or a lawyer or have big professions are supposed to be that, like you said, feed you. But I just think happiness first as well. Happiness, and when you have a passion for something, in the way that you have a passion for art, you're going to work so hard at it, harder than you ever would work if you were forced to be a lawyer.
Exactly. And for me, as long as I'm working, as long as I'm putting in the work, the money comes. Like, I literally don't even have to chase the money. It comes.
Yeah.
So, and I always tell people this, I always tell them, if you're committed to what you're doing, it's something substantial, don't even worry about the money. The money will come. It will come to you. Just do what you need to do. Keep at it. Be consistent. Work hard. Work smart.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to being an African artist. So because it's not taken seriously, we don't even have proper institutions for art. We don't have proper art schools. In Zambia, we don't really have proper art galleries. We don't have like a system in place that other countries, like for example, South Africa has like a really pretty good system. They have fantastic art schools and all those things. And then as a woman, you already are at a disadvantage somehow, because art is it's a male dominated industry. So, you know, when you get into it, it's kind of hard to sort of like establish your niche and, you know, just stand your ground and create your own platform where people are able to respect you on your own. Like, yeah, that's that person, and this is what they do. Because most times they don't take you seriously. I remember, like, when I first started, there was so many times, like during an art exhibition, you know, like people would come through and my name, you can't really tell if it's a woman or a man's name. So most times people would assume that I was a man. Like, they would look at my work and just assume, yeah, this is a man. And I've had so many instances where people would see my work and they would love it. They'll be like, oh my God, this is such fantastic work. Who's this artist? Who's this artist? And then when they meet me, they're just like, oh, it's a girl. Like, you literally see the disappointment. So, you know, for the longest time, I remember when I put up my art page, because I started with Facebook, I made a conscious decision never to put any pictures of myself, like even work in progress, because I wanted people to think I was a man. Because I knew that if they knew I was a woman, then they would sort of like withdraw from liking my work or showing interest in it.
Which is
so for a long time,
I think it's a sad shame that this is, I said I think it's a sad shame that this is what has to happen. I understand exactly why you did it, And would I have done the same?
Yeah.
Probably, because you want your work to speak for itself and not the stereotypes to come in.
Yes.
So sad that
Yes. Yes.
we have to do such things just to manipulate the system so that we can actually be seen. I would like to
Yes.
know that a time will come when these things won't be happening.
Exactly. And so as a young Black African woman who's an artist, I have learned that I need to work 4 times as hard as my male peers to get half the recognition. So that's what it's been for me.
Yeah.
That
sucks.
It's quite frustrating sometimes, but I look at the bright side to say, me putting in the work that I do it puts me at an advantage in the long run. Yeah, right now it may not seem like a lot is happening, but I've managed to.
It is, and I think
well, I've managed to to have to build an audience of people who actually appreciate my work. And now I'm not afraid to show that I'm a woman. I own my femininity. And also the other thing with being a female artist is just within the art circles, we are expected to exhibit masculine energy. Like we're supposed to be tough and you know, and I'm like the exact opposite. I wear lots of makeup, I doll myself up. I'm like really one of those girls. And so for the longest time, like they would always try to shame me, to say, no, you can't be a diva and an artist. And I'm like, but it doesn't affect my work. Like this is who I am outside of my work, and I'm still doing the work. I'm still working harder than you are. Yes, I'm doing it in heels. So what?
Your poetry, it's not poetry, sorry, your art comes with strength, because you're coming from a place of, you have a story, you know, and you have the fact that you've got all these obstacles that you've had to face in the past and are still facing, yet you're doing so well. I think I'm proud of you, for one, and I think you should be very proud of yourself as well, because you're doing things. And I hope that your work just goes far, and you know, I want you to be exposed. I want exposure for you, and yeah, just to do great things, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no,
thank you so much.
Is there anything else before we end? Because I'm so glad that we finally managed to talk today. And yeah, hopefully this is not the end of it. And you know, how do you feel about the whole possibly one day collaborating with some poetry?
I'm down for it. I love poetry. I mean, you can write a poem and I will paint a picture of it.
Amazing. Amazing.
Still can do that.
Yeah. Okay. You heard it here first. Yuna and Nukwase collaborating. It's coming, y'all. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Yuna. It's been such a pleasure. I've enjoyed myself.
Good, me too. Take care. Have a good day. Speak soon.
We all
Have a good day too.
emotions and think about things. Let's